Settle into the place where you are now, without adjusting anything, without searching for the perfect position, allowing your body to be held by the surface beneath you, as if it has been waiting for this moment all day. Let your breathing slow on its own, not because you are forcing it, but because the night invites it, gently, patiently, as darkness always does. There is nothing you need to accomplish here, nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to solve. This is not a time for effort. This is a time for listening. Tonight, we enter the Psalms, not as poetry to analyze, not as prayers to perform, but as a quiet place to rest. The Psalms were born in the night as much as in the day. They were whispered in caves, sung on rooftops, murmured beside campfires, spoken in exile, in longing, in gratitude, and in weariness. They carry the full range of human breath, from joy to sorrow, from confidence to doubt, from silence to song. And tonight, they will carry you gently toward sleep. Imagine the ancient world settling into darkness. The sun has long disappeared beyond the hills. Stone walls release the heat of the day slowly. Oil lamps flicker softly, their light small but faithful. Somewhere, far from palaces and armies, a single voice begins to pray, not loudly, not urgently, but honestly. That voice does not rush. It knows the night is long. It knows there is time. The Psalms were never meant to hurry anyone. They move at the pace of the heart, and the heart, at night, moves slowly, psalm by psalm, line by line. They teach the soul how to exhale. They give words to feelings that often arrive without language. They allow fear to speak without letting fear lead. They allow hope to whisper without forcing it to shout. Blessed is the one. The Psalms begin, grounding the listener not in achievement, but in orientation, in direction, in a life gently aligned. Even at the opening of the book, the tone is not frantic. It is steady. There is a tree planted by streams of water, leaves that do not wither, fruit that arrives in its season. Already, rest is present. Already, there is an image of nourishment that does not demand speed. As night deepens, the Psalms become companions. Psalm 4 speaks of lying down and sleeping in peace, because safety does not come from locked doors or watchful eyes alone, but from trust that runs deeper than circumstance. Psalm 8 lifts the gaze upward, toward a sky scattered with stars, reminding the listener that smallness is not insignificance, that being held within something vast can be comforting rather than frightening. And then there is Psalm 23, perhaps the most whispered psalm of all, carried across centuries into hospital rooms, bedrooms, lonely roads, and quiet nights like this one. The Lord is my shepherd. It begins, and the words immediately slow the inner pace. The shepherd does not drive sheep forward with panic. He leads. He walks. He waits. He knows where water rests quietly. He knows where grass grows without struggle. He makes me lie down, the psalm says, not as a command, but as a gift. Lie down. Rest is allowed. Still waters appear not because the world is suddenly safe, but because presence changes how danger is held. Even the valley of deep shadow loses its power to terrify when it is no longer walked alone. The Psalms understand the night. They do not deny that darkness exists. They name it calmly. Psalm 6 speaks of tears soaking the bed. Psalm 13 asks, how long waiting will last? Psalm 22 cries out with honesty that startles the day but feels natural in the dark. Yet even these psalms never leave the listener abandoned. Lament and trust breathe together like inhale and exhale, like sorrow and hope sharing the same chest. At night, the mind often wanders backward. Memories surface, words replay, regret steps softly at the door of attention. The Psalms do not push these things away, Tem. They teach the soul how to speak without spiraling, how to remember without drowning. How to surrender thoughts into language and then let language dissolve into silence. Psalm 46 reminds the restless heart to be still and know, not as an order barked from above, but as an invitation offered in the quiet. Be still. Stop striving. Let the world turn without your supervision for a few hours. You are not required to hold everything together tonight. As you breathe slowly, the Psalms become less like text and more like rhythm. Repetition soothes the nervous system. Parallel lines create balance. Images return again and again. Refuge, rock, shelter, wings, shadow, light, dawn. These are night words. They are not sharp. They do not demand precision. They wrap rather than pierce. There is a tenderness in how often the Psalms speak of God, not as distant power, but as presence that stays awake when others sleep. You neither slumber nor sleep, one psalm says, offering the weary listener permission to rest precisely because vigilance has been handed over. If something must remain awake, it does not have to be you. Psalm 91 speaks of dwelling in shelter, of resting under wings, of darkness that does not need to be feared. It is not a denial of danger. It is a reorientation of trust. Night may bring unknown sounds, unseen movements, imagined threats, but the psalm speaks softly into that uncertainty, lowering the volume, reminding the heart that fear does not own the dark. As this first movement of the night prayer settles, you are not being asked to pray correctly, to follow a structure, or to remember verses. The Psalms are praying with you now, carrying words on your behalf. Your only task is to listen, and even listening can fade gently as sleep approaches. The ancient voices remain, the night remains, the rhythm remains, and as your breathing continues, slow and the Psalms begin to do what they have always done best at night. Create a space where the soul can lie down without armor, without explanation, without effort. In the next movement, we will allow the Psalms to become even quieter, turning from spoken prayer into whispered trust, from words into rest, from thought into stillness, as the night deepens and sleep draws nearer. BLOCK 2. When the Psalms teach the soul to exhale, stay where you are, without shifting, without adjusting, letting the calm that has begun to form continue its quiet work. Because now the Psalms move from introduction into practice, from invitation into experience, teaching the soul something it often forgets during the day: how to exhale fully. Night prayer is not built on effort. It is built on release, and the Psalms understand this deeply, shaping their language around the natural rhythms of breath, heartbeat, and surrender. As the ancient singers spoke these words, they were not always strong. Many of them prayed from places of fatigue, uncertainty, and waiting. Psalm 3 was written while fleeing danger. Psalm 42 rises from deep discouragement. Psalm 61 speaks from the edge of exhaustion, asking to be led to a rock higher than the self can reach alone. These are not polished prayers spoken from comfort. They are honest prayers, spoken slowly, because the speaker knows that rushing will not help. At night, the mind often tightens its grip. Thoughts loop, concerns rehearse themselves. The Psalms respond not by arguing with these thoughts, but by widening the inner space around them. In peace, I will lie down and sleep, says Psalm 4, not because everything has been resolved, but because peace is not postponed until the morning. Peace is chosen here, in the dark, as an act of trust rather than certainty. Again and again, the Psalms name God as refuge, fortress, shield, stronghold. These are not decorative metaphors. They are night language, words meant to give the nervous system something solid to lean against. A refuge does not ask you to stay alert. A shield does not ask you to stay vigilant. A stronghold does not require you to scan the horizon. They exist so that vigilance can rest. Psalm 62 speaks directly to the restless inner noise, saying that the soul finds rest in God alone. Notice the direction of the sentence. Rest is not something the soul manufactures. It is something the soul finds. It already exists, waiting, like a quiet room you step into after a loud day. You do not build the room. You enter. Italiano. There is a gentleness, and how often the Psalms repeat themselves. Phrases return. Images circle back. This repetition is not redundancy. It is reassurance. Just as a child is comforted by hearing the same words again and again, the soul relaxes when familiar truths are allowed to echo softly without pressure to move on. Psalm 63 speaks of remembering God upon the bed and meditating through the watches of the night. The word meditate here does not mean intense focus. It means murmuring, softly repeating, allowing thought to drift rather than concentrate. The psalmist speaks of being satisfied as with rich food, of singing with joyful lips, of being upheld while lying awake. Even wakefulness is not framed as failure. It is framed as companionship. When the Psalms speak of enemies, fear, or threat, they do so without panic. The danger is named, but it is not centered. God is centered. The threat exists at the edge of the frame, while trust remains in the middle. This is important for the night, when imagination can easily exaggerate shadows. The Psalms do not deny the shadows, but they refuse to place them on the throne. Psalm 27 speaks of seeking one thing, dwelling in the house of the Lord, beholding beauty, inquiring gently. It speaks of confidence, even when armies encamp nearby, not because danger is unreal, but because beauty and presence recalibrate perception. At night, when the world feels large and the self feels small, the Psalms remind the listener that smallness can be a place of safety. The night Psalms often shift from speech to silence. Psalm 131 describes a soul that has been quieted like a weaned child with its mother. This is one of the most sleep-shaped images in all of Scripture. A weaned child is no longer frantic, no longer demanding, no longer restless with hunger. It is content to be held. The psalm does not describe achievement, only settled trust. As you breathe now, the Psalms begin to move below language. They stop asking questions. They stop arguing. They stop explaining. They simply remain. The Lord is near, says Psalm 34. The Lord is my light, says Psalm 27. The Lord is my rock, says Psalm 18. These statements do not require mental effort. They function like anchors dropped into still water. The Psalms also give permission for the body to rest. They speak of sleep as gift, not weakness. He gives sleep to those he loves, says Psalm 127. Removing shame from rest, removing the pressure to stay productive even in the dark. Sleep is not a failure to pray. It is a form of trust. If your thoughts drift now, that is not a problem. The Psalms have always known how to carry wandering minds. They do not scold distraction. They welcome return. Like waves meeting the shore, attention can come and go without judgment. Psalm 121 reassures the traveler at night that the keeper of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. This is one of the most freeing truths the Psalms offer after sunset. If someone else remains awake, watching, guarding, then you are released from the role. Your only responsibility now is to rest. As this second movement settles, the Psalms are no longer speaking loudly. They are breathing with you. Their words thin out like mist lifting from water, leaving behind a sense of safety that does not need explanation. The night holds. The prayer continues without effort, and slowly, gently, the soul learns again how to exhale. In the next movement, the Psalms will guide us even deeper toward trust that remains when words fade, toward a rest that does not depend on understanding, but on presence alone. Block 3. The Psalms in the deepest hours of the night. Remain where you are, letting the stillness you have entered grow wider rather than deeper, as if the night were gently expanding around you, giving more room for rest, more room for breath, more room for quiet. This is the hour the Psalms know best. The hour when words are no longer used to organize the day, but to soften the edges of thought, to calm what remains unsettled, to cradle the soul as sleep approaches slowly, without urgency. The Psalms were shaped for these hours, the hours when the world outside is mostly silent, but the inner world still stirs. In ancient times, the night was long, unlit, and uncertain, and yet the Psalms speak into it without fear, assuming that darkness is not an enemy, but a condition of being human. Psalm 77 speaks of remembering God in the night watches, of stretching out hands without growing weary, of thoughts that drift and return. The psalm does not demand resolution. It allows wandering, acknowledging that the soul often circles before it settles. Psalm 16 speaks with quiet confidence, saying that the Lord gives counsel even at night, that the heart is instructed while the body rests. This is not loud instruction. It is subtle guidance, the kind that arrives beneath awareness, the way the body knows how to breathe without being told. The psalmist rests secure, not because danger has vanished, but because presence has deepened. Even sleep itself becomes a form of trust, a small surrender repeated night after night. There is a recurring movement in the Psalms during these late hours, a shift from speaking about God to speaking with God, and then slowly into simply being with God. Psalm 63 describes lying awake on the bed, thinking quietly, remembering, allowing affection rather than argument to guide the prayer. The words soften. Images replace logic. Satisfaction replaces striving. The soul is held, not corrected. Psalm 91 returns again here, not as a declaration shouted in daylight, but as a whisper meant for the dark, dwelling in shelter, resting under wings, finding refuge not in control, but in closeness. The psalm does not deny fear. It gently displaces it. It gives the imagination something else to hold, something safer, something warmer than anxiety. At this point in the night, the Psalms no longer rush from verse to verse. They linger. They repeat. They slow themselves deliberately, knowing that the body must follow the mind into rest, and the mind must be guided patiently. Psalm 46 says again, "Be still, not once, but as a settled truth that continues to echo after the words fade." Stillness is not achieved. It is interrupted. There are psalms that speak directly to insomnia, though not by name. Psalm 3 speaks of lying down and sleeping and waking again because the Lord sustains. Psalm 127 reminds the listener that rising early and staying up late in anxious toil does not add security. The message is quiet but firm. Vigilance does not create safety. Trust does. The night psalms understand that the body carries memory. Muscles hold tension. The jaw tightens. The shoulders lift. The psalms respond not with instruction manuals, but with imagery that invites release. Green pastures, still waters, quiet tents, safe dwellings. These are not metaphors to analyze. They are landscapes for the nervous system to visit. Psalm 139 enters gently at this hour, reminding the listener that darkness does not hide, that night is as clear as day to the one who watches. This is not surveillance. It is reassurance. You do not disappear in the dark. You are not lost when awareness fades. Even unconsciousness is held. As the Psalms move through the deepest hours of the night, they begin to accept silence as part of prayer. There are moments where nothing is said, where the Psalm simply exists as presence. Psalm 131 returns here. The quieted soul, the child resting, no longer reaching, no longer demanding answers. This is the posture of sleep itself. If thoughts rise now, they are met without resistance. The Psalms have room for them. If emotions surface, they are not judged. The Psalms have named them before. If nothing surfaces at all, that too is welcome. The Psalms do not require awareness to remain effective. They work beneath consciousness, like roots drawing water in the dark. Psalm 23 returns again, not in full recitation, but in atmosphere. Guidance without pressure, presence without intrusion, protection without fear. The rod and staff comfort, not because they threaten danger, but because they signal care. The valley remains, but it is no longer overwhelming. The table appears, the cup overflows. Goodness and mercy follow quietly, without needing to be chased. A tissue of prayer becomes less about speaking and more about being carried. The Psalms function like a low, steady current beneath the surface of thought, moving the soul gently toward rest. Words thin, images soften, breathing slows. The body begins to trust the dark. Psalm 4 speaks once more, promising peace and sleep together, not sequentially, but simultaneously. Peace does not wait for sleep. Sleep does not wait for peace. They arrive together, intertwined, as gifts rather than achievements. The Psalms never insist that the night be productive. They never suggest that rest must be earned. They assume that human frailty is normal, that weariness is expected, that sleep is sacred. This assumption alone lowers the inner guard, releasing the final resistance. As this third movement settles, the Psalms no longer feel external. They feel internalized, woven into breath and heartbeat. Their presence is no longer audible, but it is felt like warmth beneath a blanket, like weight holding the body down safely. In the next movement, the Psalms will begin to fade almost completely into stillness, becoming less prayer spoken and more rest received, guiding the soul towards sleep that is deep, unforced, and unafraid. BLOCK4 WHEN words. Grow quiet and trust remains. Remain gently where you are, without adjusting your posture, without searching for a better position, allowing the night to continue its slow and patient work. At T-step, the Psalms are no longer approaching the soul through effort or articulation. They are no longer forming arguments or shaping thoughts. Instead, they settle around you, like air growing still after a long day of movement, like water smoothing itself after waves had passed. The night prayer has entered a quieter phase, one where words do not disappear but soften, where meaning no longer presses forward but rests gently beside you, asking nothing in return. The Psalms understand this moment intimately. They were written by people who knew that language has limits, especially after the sun has gone down and the mind grows tired. Psalm 62 speaks of waiting in silence, not as resignation, not as emptiness, but as a deep form of trust that no longer needs explanation. Silence here is not absence. It is presence without narration. It is the soul resting without the need to justify itself, to defend itself, or to remain alert. The psalmist does not hurry this silence. He allows it to take its time, knowing that stillness cannot be forced, only as the words of the Psalms grow quieter, the imagery they leave behind becomes more stable and grounding. Rock, shelter, dwelling place. These are not images of movement or effort. They are images of remaining. Psalm 18 speaks of God as a rock and a fortress, something solid that does not shift with emotion or circumstance. At night, this kind of stability is deeply comforting. The mind no longer needs to scan for danger or anticipate change. It can lean inward, trusting that what holds it will not move. There is also a gentle transfer of responsibility that happens here. Psalm 121 returns again, softly reminding the listener that the one who keeps watch does not sleep. This is not repetition for emphasis alone. It is repetition for release. If something remains awake, attentive, aware, then you are no longer required to be. The Psalms give permission for vigilance to end. They quietly say that the night is already guarded, that awareness can fade without risk, that rest is not negligence, but but trust. Psalm 3 echoes this permission, speaking of lying down and sleeping because sustenance does not come from effort, but from being upheld. Sleep itself becomes an act of faith, a daily surrender of control. To sleep is to accept limitation, to admit that the world continues without your supervision. The Psalms do not shame this admission, they bless Italiano. They frame it as wisdom rather than weakness. At this point in the night, the Psalms stop engaging the analytical mind altogether. They no longer explain who God is or why trust is reasonable. They simply remain present. Psalm 29 speaks of power giving way to peace, of the voice that once thundered now blessing with calm. The storm imagery fades, and what remains is stillness. Peace becomes the final sound, the last vibration before silence settles fully. The Psalms also make room for vulnerability here, without dramatizing it. Psalm 55 speaks of casting burdens, not carrying them into the night. Psalm 56 speaks of tears being noticed, gathered, remembered. These are not loud reassurances. They are quiet acknowledgments that rest does not require strength. It requires honesty. The Psalms never demand that the listener be composed or confident before lying down. They meet the soul exactly where it is and allow rest to begin from there. As the night deepens further, the Psalms become less like spoken prayer and more like atmosphere. They surround rather than instruct. They hold rather than guide. Psalm 27 speaks of dwelling, of remaining in a place of beauty and safety, not as a visitor, but as someone who belongs. Dwelling implies time without pressure, presence without agenda. It is the posture of someone who is no longer preparing to leave. The body responds naturally to this shift. Muscles release in small, almost imperceptible waves. Breathing deepens without instruction. The heart rate slows without command. The Psalms do not orchestrate these changes. They allow them. They trust the body's wisdom to follow safety when safety is offered consistently and gently. Psalm 131 returns once more, not as a verse to recite, but as a state to inhabit. The quieted soul, the child resting, no longer demanding, no longer reaching. There is no striving here, no inner negotiation, no unfinished sentence waiting for resolution. This image alone is enough. The Psalms consider this posture complete prayer. At the stage, listening itself may begin to fade. Words may blur. Attention may drift in and out. This is not a loss of focus. It is a natural transition from wakefulness into rest. The Psalms do not pull you back. They do not demand alertness. They continue their quiet work beneath awareness, like roots drawing water in the dark. Silence now becomes layered rather than empty. It holds meaning without speech, trust without articulation, safety without proof. The night has fully claimed its role. The inner noise has softened it. The need to understand has loosened. What remains is a calm confidence that does not need to be named. In the next movement, the Psalms will recede almost completely into stillness, becoming a gentle undercurrent beneath sleep itself, continuing to guard, to soothe, and to hold, even as consciousness drifts away. Block 5. When the Psalms become a quiet current beneath sleep, remain exactly as you are, without trying to decide whether you are awake or asleep, because this boundary no longer matters. The Psalms have now moved beneath the surface of attention, like a slow and steady current flowing under calm water, unseen but constant, carrying the soul without effort. This is the stage where prayer no longer feels like prayer, where words are no longer tools to shape thought, but presence that simply remains. The night has fully taken its place, and the Psalms respond by becoming softer, deeper, less defined, allowing rest to arrive naturally rather than being pursued. The ancient writers of the Psalms understood this transition well. They knew that the soul cannot remain alert indefinitely, and they never demanded it to do so. Psalm 37 speaks of resting in the Lord and waiting patiently, not with clenched anticipation, not with anxious endurance, but with a calm acceptance that allows time to pass without counting it. Waiting here is not tension stretched over minutes. It is ease. It is the surrender of urgency. It is the quiet understanding that nothing essential is being delayed in this moment. As sleep draws nearer, the Psalms stop addressing specific circumstances and begin speaking to existence itself. Psalm 90 reminds the listener that human life moves like a watch in the night, brief and fleeting, yet held within something eternal. This awareness does not produce fear here. It produces perspective. The weight of the day, the pressure of responsibility, the feeling that everything must be resolved before rest can come, all begin to loosen. The night does not demand completion. It allows continuation. Psalm 103 enters gently, not as a command to praise, but as a reassurance of compassion. It speaks of mercy that does not wear thin, of love that stretches beyond failure, of understanding that remembers human fragility. The psalmist says that God knows how we are formed, remembers that we are dust, and in the quiet of the night, this knowledge removes the sharpness of self-judgment. The inner voice that criticizes softens. The soul no longer feels the need to defend itself. Rest becomes possible because acceptance has replaced evaluation. The imagery of shelter returns once more, but now without shape or detail. It is no longer wings, walls, or mountains that surround. It is simply safety, felt rather than imagined. Psalm 125 speaks of being surrounded as the mountains surround Jerusalem, an enclosure so stable it does not need attention. You do not need to picture the mountains clearly. You only need to sense the steadiness, the quiet assurance that you are not exposed, not vulnerable, not alone. At this depth of rest, the Psalms no longer ask for response. They do not expect confession, gratitude, or resolve. They offer companionship. Psalm 23 is no longer recited line by line. It has become atmosphere. Guidance no longer feels directional. It feels inherent. The idea of being led fades into the feeling of being held. Even the valley, once named and acknowledged, looses its edges and dissolves into background shadow, no longer demanding awareness. Thoughts may still surface from time to time, fragments of memory, unfinished conversations, images from the day that float briefly into awareness. The Psalms do not resist these moments. They allow them to pass gently, like leaves drifting across slow-moving water. There is no need to follow them downstream. There is no need to pull them back to shore. The current beneath remains steady and unaffected. Psalm 4 returns here, not as language, but as permission embodied, lying down, sleeping. Peace, arriving without negotiation. The body responds instinctively. Breathing deepens further. The muscles release the last traces of holding. The jaw loosens. The space behind the eyes softens. Awareness dims around the edges, not abruptly, but gradually, like light fading at dusk. The Psalms anticipate this fading of consciousness and welcome it. Psalm 127 reminds the listener that rest is given, not earned. Sleep is not a failure of devotion or attentiveness. It is participation in trust. Even unconsciousness is not absence. It is surrender. The night becomes a place where effort is no longer required and vigilance is no longer expected. At these stages, the Psalms function like a low, continuous hum beneath existence itself. They continue to affirm safety, presence, and care without forming sentences or images. Meaning remains even as language dissolves. The soul rests in something larger than thought, larger than awareness, larger than memory. There is nothing left to accomplish here. Psalm 46's stillness has fully settled. Striving has ceased. Monitoring has ended. The inner world grows wide and quiet, like open land under a night sky without clouds. If sleep has already begun to take you, The Psalms continue without you. They do not require your attention to remain effective. They never have. And if awareness flickers once more before fully fading, the Psalms receive it without comment, without instruction, without urgency. They simply remain, as they have remained through countless nights, holding, soothing, and guarding until rest is complete. Now the current carries you entirely. The words have finished their work. The night is steady and calm, and sleep comes without effort. Block 6. The Psalms, as the unbroken night watch that holds everything, remain exactly where you are, without checking whether sleep has already begun or whether wakefulness still lingers, because at this depth, the distinction no longer matters. The Psalms have now entered their most ancient function, the role they have carried since the earliest nights when humanity learned to trust the darkness rather than fight it. This is the long night watch of the soul, not a watch defined by tension or alertness, but by steady presence that does not tire, though is not ruse, and does not demand anything from the one who is resting. Long before lamps divided the night into manageable portions, before measured hours gave the illusion of control, the Psalms were spoken slowly in the deep dark, not to keep the mind active, but to anchor the heart while everything else was allowed to sleep. This watchfulness was never anxious. It was not the vigilance of fear scanning for danger. It was the calm assurance that something faithful remained when human strength faded. Psalm 121 returns again and again in this role, repeating with deliberate patience that the keeper of all things neither slumbers nor sleeps. This repetition is not excess, it is medicine. The nervous system does not relax because it hears reassurance once. It relaxes because reassurance is given consistently, gently, without variation, until the body begins to believe what the words have been saying all along. When the soul understands it is not alone in the night, that responsibility is shifted elsewhere. The compulsion to remain alert loosens its grip naturally. As the Psalms keep watch, they also reshape the experience of time itself. Psalm 90 speaks of 1,000 years being like a day, and a day like a single watch in the night, dissolving the urgency that fatigue creates. Time stretches open, the pressure to resolve unfinished thoughts, unanswered questions, unresolved emotions begins to lose its authority. The Psalms do not deny the existence of tomorrow. They simply remove its power to disturb the present moment. The night becomes spacious rather than restrictive, a place where nothing essential is being lost by resting. Throughout this long watch, the Psalms speak honestly about human fragility, but they do so without drama or alarm. They acknowledge sorrow, disappointment, grief, and fear as natural companions of being human, especially after sunset, when defenses are lower and memory speaks more freely. Psalm 34 speaks of closeness to the brokenhearted, not as rescue that requires effort, but as an earnest that simply exists. Psalm 147 speaks of wounds being bound slowly, patiently, without urgency, reminding the soul that healing is not a race and that repair does not depend on awareness. The night is not a problem to solve. It is a condition to inhabit. As sleep draws nearer, the Psalms change again, becoming less like language and more like structure. They begin to function as boundaries rather than messages. Psalm 91 emerges here, not as vivid imagery demanding visualization, but as a quiet sense of enclosure, of being surrounded without pressure or confinement. The language of dwelling and abiding takes precedence over movement or progress. The night becomes a place to remain, not a passage to endure. Stillness becomes a form of shelter. The Psalms also understand the subtle resistance that often appears just before sleep. The fear that letting go might invite loss. The concern that something important might be forgotten or undone. Psalm 127 addresses this fear directly, speaking of anxious toil, of rising early and staying up late, of striving that does not increase security. The message is profoundly releasing. Effort is not what sustains existence. Control is not what holds reality together. Letting go does not create collapse. Rest aligns the soul with how life truly functions. At this dip, the language of the Psalms becomes intentionally repetitive, not because creativity has failed, but because repetition calms the inner world. Rock, refuge, light, shepherd. These words rotate slowly, predictably, like stars moving across a clear night sky, never surprising, never demanding attention. Familiarity itself becomes a form of safety. Nothing new needs to happen. Nothing unexpected needs to arrive. Psalm 23 permeates this entire watch, no longer as a passage to be remembered, but as atmosphere. Guidance is no longer directional. Presence is no longer intrusive. Protection no longer implies threat. Even the idea of walking through something dissolves. The soul is not traveling through the night, it is resting within it. The valley loses definition. The table remains set. The cup continues to overflow quietly, without announcement. Breathing slows further without instruction. The body responds instinctively to sustained reassurance by releasing its final resistance. Muscles loosen in subtle waves. The chest softens. The weight of the body becomes grounding rather than heavy. The Psalms never comment on this process. They trust the body's ancient intelligence to follow safety when safety is offered consistently, without interruption. Psalm 4 returns again at this level, not as words, but as permission fully embodied. Lying down, sleeping. Peace and sleep arriving together, not in sequence, not conditionally, but as companions. The Psalms remove the hidden rules people place on rest. They do not say peace must come first. They do not say sleep must wait. They allow both to arrive naturally, without negotiation. As awareness thins and edges blur, the Psalms do not disappear. They move beneath consciousness. They become a low, unwavering presence, like a faithful watch that continues even when no one is aware of it. Even if sleep takes you completely, the watch does not end. Nothing essential is left unattended. Nothing important is missed. The night is held without effort from you. The watch is long, but it is gentle. The presence is steady, but it is not demanding. And you are free to rest completely. Lock 7. When the Psalms become a shelter for the unguarded heart, remain gently suspended in this softened state, where the body no longer insists on clarity and the mind no longer seeks direction. Because now the Psalms move into another ancient role, one they have fulfilled for generations who reached the deepest hours of the night, carrying unguarded thoughts, quiet fears, unspoken memories, and the subtle vulnerability that only darkness allows to surface. This is the hour when defenses lower naturally, when the effort to appear strong dissolves, and when the heart rests, exposed, not in danger, but in need of shelter that does not interrogate or demand explanation. The Psalms understand this exposure completely. They do not respond to vulnerability with correction or urgency. They respond with covering. Again and again, they speak the language of refuge, not as a place you must reach, but as a space already surrounding you. Psalm 61 speaks of being led to a rock higher than oneself, not through exertion, but through guidance. The image is not of climbing, but of being brought. The heart does not have to lift itself. It only has to remain open enough to be held. As the night deepens, the Psalms begin to address the unguarded heart directly. Psalm 42 speaks of a soul that feels cast down and restless, asking itself why it is troubled. But the question is not aggressive. It is gentle, curious, compassionate. The psalmist does not shame the soul for its unrest. He listens to it. He allows longing to exist without rushing to silence it. Hope is invited, not forced, allowed to settle slowly, like breath returning after a long pause. There is a quiet realism in how the Psalms treat emotional exposure. They never pretend that faith removes vulnerability. Instead, they treat vulnerability as the place where faith actually lives. Psalm 57 speaks of taking refuge in the shadow of wings until disaster passes by, not denying that disaster exists, but acknowledging that it does not last forever. The wings do not remove the storm. They provide covering while it moves through. At this stage of the night, the Psalms stop speaking in sharp contrasts. They no longer divide the world cleanly into safe and unsafe, good and bad, resolved and unresolved. They speak instead of patience, of waiting, of remaining. Psalm 130 waits for the morning more than watchmen wait for dawn, not because the night is unbearable, but because waiting itself has become a posture of trust. The watchmen do not panic. They know the light will come. Their waiting is steady, not strained. As awareness continues to soften, the Psalms become deeply attentive to the inner landscape. Psalm 139 enters here, speaking quietly of being known completely, not only in strength, but in weakness, not only in clarity, but in confusion. Darkness is not a hiding place. Night does not conceal. This is not surveillance, itis intimasi. The unguarded heart does not need to retreat. It is already understood. The Psalms also recognize how memory behaves at night. Old conversations resurface. Regrets revisit without warning. Moments replay with new intensity. The Psalms do not fight this process. They redirect it gently. Psalm 77 remembers, reflects, and questions, but eventually shifts attention from personal distress to the remembrance of faithfulness across time. The memory does not disappear. It changes shape. It becomes less sharp, less personal, more spacious. As the heart remains open, the Psalms continue to build shelter around it, layer by layer. Psalm 91 appears, again, not as a declaration to be repeated, but as an atmosphere to inhabit, dwelling, abiding, remaining. These words are not instructions. They are descriptions of what is already happening. The night itself becomes a dwelling place. The heart rests within it, unexposed, unthreatened. The Psalms also address the quiet fear of being seen too clearly. Psalm 51 speaks of truth in the inward being, not as accusation, but as healing. The unguarded heart does not need to perform. It does not need to justify itself. It can remain honest without consequence. This honesty becomes a relief rather than a burden. As the night continues, the Psalms no longer try to shape emotional outcomes. They do not aim to make the heart joyful or sorrowful. They aim to make it safe. Safety becomes the priority. When safety is established, emotion settles on its own. Psalm 4 returns again, promising peace and sleep together, not as rewards, but as natural companions of trust. The body responds subtly to this sheltering. Breathing deepens again. The muscles that protect the chest loosen. The jaw unclenches. The inner guard stands down without command. The Psalms never instruct this release. Te ayui, trusting the body to respond when Threada has truly diminished. At these deep, the Psalms become less audible and more structural. They are no longer heard as words, but felt as containment. They create an inner room where the unguarded heart can rest without explanation, without defense, without anticipation. Nothing is asked, nothing is expected. If awareness flickers now, the Psalms receive it gently. If consciousness fades, they continue without interruption. The shelter does not depend on attention. It does not collapse when awareness loosens. It remains quiet and reliable, holding what no longer needs to be held tightly. The heart rests, unguarded, but not unprotected. The night is deep, but it is kind, and sleep moves closer without resistance. Blockade. When the Psalms dissolve the weight of time and leave only rest, remain exactly where you are, without any need to orient yourself in relation to time. Because at this depth, the Psalms began to do something profoundly gentle and quietly radical. They loosened time itself, not by denying its existence, not by pretending tomorrow does not exist, but by lifting the soul out of its constant measuring, counting, anticipating, and worrying. The night becomes wide rather than long, spacious rather than slow, and the heart no longer feels pressed forward by the ticking of inner clocks. The Psalms have always known that time weighs most heavily on the weary, and they speak into that weight with patience rather than instruction. Psalm 90 returns here not as a reminder of mortality meant to unsettle, but as a soft reframing meant to relieve. 1,000 years are like yesterday when it has passed, like a watch in the night that arrives and departs quietly. This perspective is not meant to diminish human life, but to remove urgency from it. When time is placed inside something larger, it stops demanding attention. The soul is no longer required to rush toward meaning. Meaning already surrounds it. The Psalms understand how, at night, the mind tends to lean forward into tomorrow or backward into yesterday, rarely resting in the present moment. Psalm 27 addresses this gently, speaking of confidence that does not depend on immediate resolution. Waiting for the Lord is not framed as restless anticipation, but as settled courage. The psalmist does not count the hours until dawn. He allows the night to exist fully, trusting that light arrives without being forced. As sleep draws closer, the Psalms stop speaking in sequences altogether. They no longer move from problem to solution, from question to answer. They simply remain. Psalm 131 becomes especially present here, not as an image to analyze, but as a state to inhabit. A quieted soul, a child resting, not because it understands time, but because it is held. In this posture, minutes lose their authority. The heart no longer negotiates with the future. There's a remarkable tenderness in how the Psalms treat waiting. Psalm 130 waits for the morning more than watchmen wait for the dawn. Yet this waiting is not anxious or strained. The watchmen do not pace. They do not question whether the sun will rise. They remain at their post calmly, knowing that dawn does not depend on their vigilance. This kind of waiting removes pressure from the heart. It allows rest to exist even before change occurs. The Psalms also understand how memory reshapes time at night. Old moments resurface with unexpected clarity. Past words echo more loudly. Regret and nostalgia both feel closer than they did during the day. The Psalms respond not by suppressing memory, but by expanding it. Psalm 77 remembers works done long ago, deeds performed across generations. The individual moment is no longer isolated. It becomes part of a longer story, held within continuity. When memory is widened, it loses its sharpness. At this depth of the night, the Psalms no longer attempt to organize thought. They allow it to drift freely. Psalm 63 speaks of remembering God upon the bed, not through focused concentration, but through gentle murmuring, thoughts that come and go without demand. Wakefulness itself is not framed as failure. It is simply another way of being present, another posture of trust. The body responds almost immediately when the weight of time begins to dissolve. Breathing deepens further without instruction. The sense of urgency releases from the chest. The subtle pressure to progress, to complete, to arrive somewhere fades. The night becomes an open field rather than a narrow path. There is nowhere you need to go. Psalm 4 returns quietly at this level, reminding the heart once again that peace and sleep belong together. Peace is not postponed until tomorrow. Sleep does not wait for everything to be resolved. They arrive when the heart stops measuring itself against time. This arrival is gradual, unannounced, and deeply natural. The Psalms also remove the fear of wasting time by resting. Psalm 127 speaks again of anxious toil and the illusion that constant effort adds security. Rest is not lost time. It is alignment with reality. Life continues without strain. Nothing essential pauses because you have stopped striving. As awareness softens even more, the Psalms themselves begin to lose shape. Words blur gently. Sentences dissolve into tone. Meaning remains without structure. The heart no longer listens for phrases. It rests in rhythm, in reassurance, in the steady sense that nothing is being rushed and nothing is being neglected. Time loosens its grip completely here. There is no before and after, no countdown, no urgency. There is only the present moment, wide and unthreatening, holding you without expectation. The night does not hurry you toward morning. It allows you to remain exactly where you are. If sleep has already begun to take you, the psalms continue beneath it, unchanged. They do not require awareness. They do not depend on attention. They've always done their work in the dark, quietly, faithfully, without witness. The hours pass without weight. The future waits without pressure, and rest deepens, steady and Block 9. When the psalms gather the soul into final stillness, remain exactly as you are, without any attempt to follow the movement of thought or to hold on to awareness. Because now the psalms begin to perform their quietest and most tender work. This is the stage where they no longer speak to the mind or even to the heart in any direct way, but to the whole being at once, gathering scattered attention, unspoken emotion, and physical sensation into a single field of stillness. The night has deepened enough that effort has lost its meaning, and the psalms respond by becoming almost transparent, present without insistence, steady without sound. The psalms have always known how to accompany this final descent into rest. They were written by people who understood exhaustion not as failure, but as part of the human rhythm. Psalm 6 speaks of weariness that reaches the bones of beds softened by tears. Yet even here the language does not spiral into despair. It slows. It settles. It allows sorrow to exist without amplifying it. In the quiet of the night, the psalms do not rush healing. They allow it to unfold beneath awareness. At this depth, the psalms stop distinguishing sharply between emotion and body. They recognize that tension is carried physically, that memory settles into muscles, that fear tightens breath. Psalm 38 speaks of weakness, heaviness, and fatigue, not to dramatize suffering, but to acknowledge it honestly. The act of naming becomes an act of release. When the body is allowed to be tired, it no longer needs to resist rest. The language of trust becomes increasingly subtle here. Psalm 62 speaks again of the soul finding rest, not striving toward it. Rest is not an achievement. It is a location. The psalms guide the soul there quietly, without directions, simply by removing obstacles. When resistance dissolves, rest appears on its own. There is a profound gentleness in how the psalms treat unfinishedness at night. They do not insist that problems be solved before sleep arrives. Psalm 55 speaks of casting burdens, not resolving them. The burden does not need to be understood to be released. It only needs to be let go. The Psalms provide a place where unfinished thoughts can be set down without judgment. As the night continues, the Psalms begin to speak less about protection and more about belonging. Psalm 139 returns here with its language of being known fully, not only in action but in stillness, not only in speech but in silence. There is no corner of awareness that needs to remain hidden. Even the parts of the self that fade with sleep remain held. Memory behaves differently now. It no longer pushes forward demanding attention. It drifts slowly, like images appearing and dissolving in a half-dream. The Psalms allow this drifting. They do not anchor memory rigidly to meaning. They let it float. Psalm 77's remembrance becomes less about recounting and more about resting within continuity. The imagery of shelter remains present but softened almost beyond form. Psalm 91's dwelling place is no longer vague. It is felt as a quiet enclosure. There are no edges to examine, no walls to trace. There is only the sense of being surrounded by something stable and unthreatening. At this point, even the idea of waiting dissolves. Psalm 130's watchmen no longer look toward dawn. They simply remain at rest within the night, confident that time moves without assistance. The future no longer presses inward. The present expands outward. The body follows this shift instinctively. Breathing becomes slow and shallow in the most peaceful way. Muscles release completely. The weight of the body feels supported rather than heavy. The boundary between the body and the surface beneath it softens. Sensation becomes diffuse and gentle. The Psalms no longer speak in sentences here. They speak in tone.com/safety. Nearness. These qualities remain even as language fades. Psalm 23's presence is no longer heard. It is assumed the shepherd does not need to be described. The care is simply there. If awareness flickers briefly, it does not disturb the stillness. The Psalms receive it without reaction. If consciousness fades completely, the Psalms continue their quiet watch beneath sleep. Unchanged by attention or lack of it, they were never dependent on being heard. This is the point where night prayer completes itself without announcement. There is no closing statement, no final word, only the gradual settling of everything that was once held too tightly. Nothing needs to be carried forward from here. Nothing needs to be remembered. The Psalms have gathered what was scattered, and rest has arrived, quietly and completely. Block 10 and the Psalms remain after everything else has grown silent. Remain as you are, without attempting to stay awake and without attempting to fall asleep. Because at this final depth, there is no longer a need to choose between the two. The Psalms have now reached the place they were always moving toward. The place beyond instruction, beyond comfort, beyond even reassurance, where they remain simply as presence. This is not the presence that speaks, explains, or guides, but the presence that stays when language dissolves, when intention loosens, and when the last threads of conscious effort gently unwind. The night has become complete, and the Psalms respond by becoming almost invisible, like air that is no longer noticed because it no longer resists. From the beginning, the Psalms were shaped for this moment. They were never meant to end abruptly or resolve neatly. They were meant to linger, to echo softly after the voice has stopped, to remain in the body after the words had faded. In ancient nights, these prayers were spoken until the speaker no longer knew whether they were still speaking or had begun to sleep. That uncertainty was not a problem. It was the goal. The Psalms do not seek to keep the mind alert. They seek to accompany the soul as awareness thins and rest becomes complete. At this step, the Psalms no longer differentiate between trust and rest. They become the same thing. Psalm 62's quiet waiting is no longer an action the soul performs. It is the state the soul inhabits. Waiting no longer has direction. It no longer looks toward change or resolution. It simply remains, steady and untroubled, like water that has stopped responding to wind. The idea of protection also changes here. Earlier, the Psalms spoke of refuge, shelter, wings, walls, strongholds. Now even those images soften and dissolve. Protection no longer feels like something surrounding you. It feels like something underneath you, holding without pressure, supporting without being felt. Psalm 91's dwelling place is no longer imagined. It is assumed. Safety no longer needs description because it has become the environment itself. The Psalms also release the final attachment to outcome. Throughout the night, they have allowed sorrow, hope, waiting, and trust to coexist. Now even these distinctions fade. Psalm 37's invitation to rest and wait patiently no longer implies anticipation. Waiting becomes stillness without expectation. The heart no longer leans forward or backward. It settles fully into what is. Memory, which earlier surfaced and drifted, now quiets completely. Not because it has been resolved, but because it no longer needs to be active. The Psalms do not force forgetting. They allow memory to rest. Psalm 103's compassion, which once soft judgment, now becomes background warmth. Nothing is being evaluated. Nothing is being weighed. The inner voice that once commented on everything has gone silent. At this stage, the The psalms no longer move through images or themes. They become rhythm alone, the rhythm of breath, the rhythm of the heart, the rhythm of the night itself. Psalm 4's promise of peace and sleep together has fully materialized. There is no separation between calm and unconsciousness. They arrive as one continuous experience, smooth and uninterrupted. The body has followed completely. Muscles no longer release in stages. They have released fully. The sensation of edges has softened. Hands, shoulders, legs, and face feel distant and light, supported rather than held. Breathing has found its slowest natural pace, not guided, not controlled, simply occurring. The body no longer listens for instruction. It rests because resting is now inevitable. The psalms remain, but not as sound or thought. They remain as assurance without language. Psalm 23 is here, but not as words about guidance or valleys. It is here as the quiet certainty that nothing threatens and nothing is required. Psalm 121 is here, but not as a statement about vigilance. It is here as the felt relief that someone else remains aware, so you do not have to be. Psalm 131 is here, but not as an image of a child. It is here as the complete absence of striving. Even awareness itself becomes optional. If it flickers briefly, it is met with the same stillness. If it disappears entirely, nothing changes. The psalms do not depend on being noticed. They do not weaken when attention fades. They were always meant to work beneath consciousness, to guard without being seen, to hold without being felt. The night has no edge here. There is no sense of nearing morning or moving away from it. Time has fully loosened its grip. The hours pass without weight, without direction, without urgency. The future has stopped calling. The past has stopped speaking. Only rest remains. This is where the psalms stay. After his voice is gone, after the story has ended, after the listener has drifted completely beyond words, they remain as quiet faithfulness, as steady presence, as something that does not leave when sleep arrives. Nothing more will be asked tonight. Nothing needs to be remembered. Nothing needs to be carried forward. The psalms remain. The night holds. And sleep is complete.